The currants are ripe, and last year we made some black and red currant jam. Turned out really good. Red currants are ready. Look like little jewels in the sunshine here. Black currants are ready, and this jam calls for no extra pectin. First time I ever did that was last year with these, and it turned out excellent. And so I need 2.5 cups of the reds and 2.5 cups of the black. The reds are real simple to pick. I think the easiest way to do that is when you pick the red ones, you could sit out here and do this. That works. Put them in your bucket, and on a nice day that'd be just fine. A little bit faster and easier way is just to pick those right off of there like that. You just pick them and fill them up in your little bucket, and then later on take them in the house or in the shade somewhere and get them off of there. They come off real easy, the red ones, when they're nice and ripe. A lot easier than the black ones did. So here's the blacks. Most of them are a little bit bigger than the reds, and these are a little bit harder to pick. You can take them off like we were doing on the red. They've got a really peculiar flavor. I think you have to almost try them a little bit. I think you have to eat them a few times to kind of get used to the flavor, but once you start getting used to them, they're not real bad. But they're going to make an excellent jam, and I've already made wine out of some last year, and that turned out really good. They've got a taste similar to, I think, like juniper or some type of an evergreen almost. That's what it reminds me of. So I need 2.5 cups of these, and I'm going to pick a bunch of these and then start making the jam. So for our currant jam, I'm going to get the recipe out of this cookbook right here, Small Batch Preserving. It's a really good book. It's got a lot of good recipes in it. Got the black currants here. We got the red ones. Made some jam the other day. I had the red ones all washed up, and I'm going to finish washing these black ones. Just run some water in there, clean out any bad ones. Stem any that need to be stemmed. I don't worry about the little ends there, the flower end. There's a little bit of a thing on there, but that's going to cook right into the jam. You never notice it. The other thing, I don't have a regular canning kettle that these pint jars fit in. This is what I'm going to be using. And so I use this here, and I put enough jars in there. So I'm only going to make like 5 or 6 of these jars. Put enough jars in here so that they don't tip over when it's bringing it to boil. So we're going to boil the jars, and we're also going to use this to process it. And what I like to do, I leave the jars right in there, fill them all up with water. Times I've tried to fill this up with water and put jam in, I usually don't have enough water in. So this way here, I'm going to make sure I have enough water in. You want about an inch over these jars. And that works out good. So we'll finish doing that. I'll get that all set up. My normal go-to kettle for making jam is this enameled cast iron pan. It's got a good heavy bottom. It's a good heavy pan. Evenly distributes the heat. And use that one when we're making jams with pectin. The jam we're making today doesn't use any pectin. It's just a boiled down jam. And it worked out really good a couple of times for me. And this is the kettle I prefer for that. Stainless steel. And notice it's got the good heavy bottom on it. And it's from the Martha Stewart collection. I mean, how can you go wrong, huh? So this is the one we're going to use. It's bigger around this way. Helps evaporate some of the moisture. Calls for 2.5 cups each. Black currants. And dump that in the kettle right here. And it'll also be 2.5 cups of the red currants. And here's the red currants. Got another 2.5 cups. Red currants are the ones that have the pectin, the most pectin. These are real high in pectin, and that's what makes this recipe work. So don't skimp on the red. Make sure you got enough red ones in there. And we'll dump that in the kettle. And frozen. And 1 cup of water. And I'm gonna bring this to a boil. I'm going to bring that to a boil and turn it down to simmer and let it simmer for about 10 minutes. And then we'll put the rest of the ingredients in. Okay, so we had 5 cups of berries in here, the blacks and the reds. I got it up to a boil now. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover this. Actually, I'm going to turn it down first. We're going to turn this down to a simmer. And that's... I can turn the stove down really low. It's kind of a nice stove, but I'm going to put it there. I'm going to keep an eye on it. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. That's what I did the last time I made this. And we're going to cover this. I'm going to let this simmer for 10 minutes. But make sure every now and then you stir it up. You don't want anything sticking to the bottom or getting burned. When this is done simmering for 10 minutes, then we're going to add our sugar. 3 cups of sugar. And here comes the key cat. 3 cups of sugar in there. 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And the last item that they have for this jam is something called cassis. C-A-S-S-I-S. And that's a black currant liqueur. Now I couldn't find that in our area anywhere. And I just skipped it. So I don't think you really need it. Alright, we're going to let that simmer for 10 minutes and then we'll come back to it. Okay, the berries have been simmering for about 10 minutes now. I actually turned them down a little bit more. This Wolf stove is really nice. It's got 2 settings on these knobs. One's just for regular cooking, and then go down a little bit lower for simmer. So I got a high simmer now. So we're going to add our sugar. 3 cups of sugar. And I kind of like to keep mixing it here. Pour it all in at once. Sometimes it clumps up. The bottom of this pan is kind of hot, so I can feel it trying to stick down there. This is granulated sugar. It's not the pure white sugar. It's organic. It's an organic sugar. I try to do most things organically. Try to avoid high fructose corn syrup and things if we can. Okay, I'm going to stir that in. I'm going to turn the heat up here now. Bring that. Okay. And I want to bring this up to a full boil. And we're going to put 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in there. And what does 2 tablespoons equal? Well, it equals either 1/8 of a cup or 1 ounce. So I just squeezed it in here. And the lemon juice isn't for flavor as much as the acidity. If you got too low of an acidity, it won't gel up right. If you got too high, then it gels up almost too much. So it sets too quickly, and the sweet fruit will weep, drives the water out. So I'll set up and you'll have little water puddles on it, I guess. Never happened to me, but... Okay, this is going to take a couple of minutes here. And now you have to keep this stirring constantly. Once this comes to boil, I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. Stirring constantly. The berries are coming to a full boil, rolling boil here. It says to do this for 10 minutes, to leave it at a full boil. But Once it gets going a little bit better, I'm going to actually turn it down. I'm going to keep it boiling, but I think this is a little hot. You want to turn it down, but just make sure it stays boiling good. Should have put the liqueur. If you had the liqueur, you would have put that in at the same time you put the lemon juice and the sugar in. So I'm going to just touch that down just a hair. The gas stove here. I like cooking on gas. Stuff like this especially. So I've got a lot more control over it. Don't have to be taking pots and pans off, on and off, trying to get them to cool down. There. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. And you do this for, I'm going to put the timer on for 10 minutes. I'm going to stand here pretty well stirring it until I have to run and get my cup of coffee over there. And don't leave this very long, seconds at the most if you have to do something. You do this until it starts to gel. You can do a sheet test. I've got 3 tablespoons in the freezer right now, getting good and cold. And I'll show you what we do after I think this is about ready. Just dip that in real quick and bring it up. And this will start sheeting. You can almost tell even when it gets pretty close to ready, it's actually going to start along the size of the pan here. I don't need no more ice cream sauce, so I want to make sure this sets up properly and actually end up a jam. Got about 6 pints of elderberry ice cream sauce downstairs that didn't set up for me last year. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep boiling this and come back to you later. Okay, I'm back already. We have to tell you, we're going to do this. I'm going to process this when it's done. So I got my jars all ready to go here. Got them in my kettle. Got about 1 inch of water over the top of them. And I want that water boiling by the time I get this done. So we're going to turn this burner on here. Whoops, wrong one. And by the time this jam is ready to be put in the jars, this water should be really hot. Because we're going to put that in there, and we'll show you what we're going to do once we get that far. Okay. Been 10 minutes. I put it on for an extra 2 minutes. Maybe 12 minutes. Now look how that's boiling. I've got this stove set on medium low. So this should be good, I think. Keep it boiling like that. So I'm going to turn the heat completely off on this. I got my spoons, for one of them. And we'll test the sheeting. That'll stay good and hot. Stir it a little bit. I want to do this a little quick. We don't want to hold that spoon in there because it's nice and frosty right now, so I want it to stay that way as much as possible. So we'll just dip it in there and pull it out. And as that gel cools, it should actually start. See how it's not really running real fast? See, you can see it's starting to drip. Look at that. Starting to gel up. So I say that's just about ready to go. And sides of the pan cooked. I'm going to let it cook for about another minute, I think. The other thing I didn't mention, I should have, was to get your lids ready. Start some boiling water, put your lids in there and then turn it down. You don't need to keep them boiling, you just want them nice and hot when you're ready to can. Okay, it's been about another minute and a half, so we're going to give it a second test here. It looks good to me. I think that's going to set up just fine. I prefer my jams on the thicker side than on the thinner side. I really don't like them too thin. Put jam on a muffin or bread, I don't want it running off. I want it to stay there. Okay, that looks good to me. This next part is a little bit tricky, so you don't want any little kids around or pets or anything that's going to get underfoot. Because what we're going to do, we got our jars ready. And remember, I filled the jars up with water, so I make sure I had enough water in there. And we're going to take 5 out with the water in it, and we're going to dump the water out in the sink. Now, This is the outfit I've used for years. It's a kind of an old-fashioned metal one. I suppose they still make them. You grab that jar and pull it out of there. And it's always kind of shaky. Right, I'm always afraid I'm going to drop it out of there. So I went and got a new one. I got this one. And it's got rubber. It's a little bit bigger, so it's a little bit harder to get down in there. But this baby really holds the jars good. So I'm going to take this hot water out of here. It's almost boiling. And I know I'm going to get 5 of these. So dump a little water out. You want to what's going to happen is when we fill these with jam, that jam is going to replace this water. So we don't want to just dump the water in the pot and end up with too much water in there. See how good that just grips it really good. Okay, that's 5 out of there. Leave these 3 in here. If I need another one, I can pull it out. And basically now it's just a matter of ladling this hot jam into my jars. Here's an interesting trick. How do you get those hot lids out easily? Well, if you got one of these little things or something with a little magnet on the end, I didn't think this up. I saw this on somebody else's channel. You just look at that, pulls them right out. I always like to pat that water off a little bit. Okay, I'm going to get my jars over here and we'll start filling them up. Here's the spoon I just did a little while ago. That's setting up pretty good. A little bit of water on there. I'm going to fill these jars up to about 1/4 inch to the top. I like these heavier funnels. If you notice, I got tape right here. Well, I got about a 1/2 inch gap between the stove and the counter. If I don't put that tape on there, I'm sure as tootin' going to slop jam right down inside there. And even though nobody can see it, I know it's there and it bothers me. So I put the tape there to keep that from happening. Well, I got to get going here. This jam is starting to gel a little bit. And I try to do this very carefully. When I pull this funnel out, I'm going to fill this funnel almost to the point of maybe 1/4 inch below where it bends down there. And then, very carefully, pull that out. So we don't want to get jam on the rim of the jar. Otherwise, I've got to wipe that off. Can't have that on there. And sometimes you end up right halfway between. You don't have quite enough for a full jar. So, I got other size jars. Sometimes I put some in there, but usually I just put it in a little dish or something, or one of my extra jars. And that'll be for immediate use tomorrow morning. That one could have had a little bit more in. You don't want too much headroom in there, then you got too much air. You don't want it too close to the top because you need a little cushion there. Matter of fact, I might not be getting 5 out of here. I don't know what I did different. Looks like I'm only going to get 4 out of there. It's interesting. Oh dear. That's not here. Well, my card ran out before I finished showing you what I wanted to show you. So I went and put that stuff on the computer. Had this, came to boil in 10 minutes. Had it boiling for 10 minutes, let me say. And now, we aren't going to yank those out. I'll stop boiling, but turn that off, the heat off, and you leave those sit for about 5 minutes. And leave them sit, and what happens is that equalizes the pressure. As this water cools down, the jars cool down a little bit, the pressure will equalize, and when you pull them out, it'll do what it's supposed to do. Thing I wanted to show you is I'm putting these caps on. Not everybody knows how to put caps on, but it's okay. So you had them in your boiling water or hot water, and to get them out, get one of these, something like this. Just a little level thing with a magnet on it. Rather than poking around with forks or whatever to get them out, just pick that right up. The other thing I said was you put those on your jar and you put your screw lid on. You don't want to be Superman. You're not trying to squeeze that down as tight as you can. Just snug it up. Because when you put it in this hot water and it starts boiling, the air that's in there and the stuff that's in there is going to expand a little bit. So that if you tighten that down too tight, it might not have enough room to expand. Okay, it's just been about just about 5 minutes now with that. And when I pull these out, you might hear them popping, because that's how quick this goes. Don't mess with those screw lids. Leave those alone. Now when this pops down, some of these might even feel a little loose. Just leave them on there. Don't touch them. Just leave them alone. Let this jam cool completely down. And then you can take those off. Those lids that we put on, they'll seal down, and that's all you need. You don't have to leave these on once everything's cool. And if it didn't seal, well, you'll know. But they'll pop. The lid will pop down. I think that's long enough. Let's see. 7 seconds to go there. So I'm going to pull these out. Some say don't dump that water off the top. I like to tip it a little bit and get it off. I'm surprised I only got 4. I thought I actually had a little bit more in there than the last batch. I thought for sure I was going to get 5 jars out. I didn't have to put that extra jar in there, fill it up with water. It went over pretty good. Don't hear them popping yet, but sometimes it takes a little while. See, this really holds them nice. Do away with your old metal one that you got if you got one of them and get something like this. Oh, did you hear that? One of them popped. And whoops, there we go. There they all are. And here's the little bit of jam I had left. Actually, it thickened up pretty good. Maybe I didn't need that extra couple minutes that I cooked it. But better a little thick than too thin, I say. It's pretty good. Pretty tart. You only add 3 cups of sugar in there to 5 cups of fruit. If you did this conventionally with pectin, regular pectin, usually it's like almost 1 extra cup of sugar per fruit. Whoops. 1 extra cup of sugar. Well, not extra, but it'd be like 4 cups of fruit to 5 cups of sugar. 5 cups of fruit to 6 cups of sugar. And for me, that's way too much sugar. When I do use pectin, I usually use the light, one that don't need so much sugar. Because I want to taste the fruit. I don't just want to taste sweetened sugar. And that's my jam making for today. Thank you for watching.